Welcome to the HEARTS Entwined podcast. In this podcast, we'll be having discussions around the secrets which attract lasting, healthy, fulfilling relationships, creating a healthy mindset, and what women should know and understand about men. Introducing your host, Lyn Smith, the Queen of Hearts, relationship expert, trainer, speaker, and best-selling author of the Cupid's Bow technique. Lyn's mission is to have a positive impact in reducing divorce, domestic violence, and suicide.
Welcome to the HEARTS Entwined podcast. This is your host, Lyn Smith, the Queen of Hearts. And today, listeners, we've got a really juicy subject that I can't wait to talk about. It's all about women embracing their inner wild side. So for that, I've got an expert in this area. Her name is Jane. She's a feminine embodiment and sacred sexuality coach. Welcome, Jane.
Thank you so much for inviting me on the show. I'm so excited about the topic that we're going to dive into.
Me too. So before we get started,
let's begin.
I know that originally, the title around this was we were discussing off air was embracing your inner slut, and I was a bit sort of, I suppose, cautious about maybe using that word, and you come up with a great explanation around why you thought it might be relevant to use in this context. So I would like you to first of all explain that for the audience, if you would, Jane.
So originally when I messaged Lyn, the title was supposed to be why it's so important for women to embrace the inner slut. And this title I specifically chose because the word slut itself has a lot of negative connotation and almost like a bit of a trigger warning for people. Because for women for so long, I don't know about you, but I grew up originally in Vietnam, where we had a lot of cultural conditioning, a lot of cultural suppression, especially when it comes to intimacy and sexuality. And so I grew up always was very conscious about attracting attention from men. I didn't want to be called a slut. I always had to dress, appropriately because, I wanted to appear like the nice girl, the good girl. And when I went through my journey of sexual healing and sexual awakening, there was a part of the journey where I embraced and reclaimed my inner slut. And that was essentially a rebellious act for women, I believe, to reclaim that word as sacred for ourselves and to really tell the world that our sexuality for us is holy, is sacred, and we have nothing to be ashamed of. That we embracing our body provocatively is firstly for ourselves, that pleasures are for ourselves, and it is in our birthright to experience, to indulge, and to really soak up, the goodness that life has to offer. And this is why I think it's so important for women, not just in relationship, but in general, to really own that wild side that we know each and every single woman in the world has, but has kept hidden in the closet.
Yeah, I totally understand what you're saying and why you're saying it. And it's good that you've actually clarified the context in which you mean it in terms of, women. And I totally get it. For me, it is about being, I suppose, open to unleashing that naughty, more darker side of myself.
Yes, definitely. Yeah, and I think, so for me, I believe that within a woman, there's like you said, the two sides, the good side, the one that wants to be the good wife, the one that wants to be a good mother. And there's another side, the kind of like wild, slutty, that we kind of kept separately in the bedroom. And yet often for a lot of women, there's a bit of a conflict. And almost like that identity crisis of like, I can be this or that. And what I've seen in a lot of my clients who come to me is that once they kind of like got into relationship, or once they become mother, then that identity, the mother side kind of took over, or the wife kind of identity took over, and they essentially lose touch with their own inner, like, sensual side. And this is why I believe part of it is, we have a lot of, things to do, housework, chores. And so that kind of side take away the inner spark, which then create a lot of lack of passion in relationship. And this is, more important why we're having discussion right now. And
it's a shame, isn't it? We sort of, I suppose, either slip into dull routines or think that that's what our partner wants, is to, like you say, especially once we become mothers, I suppose there's the more like, the conditioner around what that good woman or wife is in terms of what we've been previously educated or parented or even religiously indoctrined to be like.
Definitely. Yeah, and especially if you come from like religious background, that conditioning is even harder. And for women to really embrace their own sexual side, like the level of empowerment and liberation that will come is beyond anything you could ever imagine. I have seen women like literally breaking free from like their fears, their shame, their chains of like cultural suppression, and become a new woman. And there's something incredibly like beautiful and radiant about women who really owns who she is. And this is not just about sex. A lot of my work, even though the focus is about sacred sexuality, but for me, sex is about life. That's how we come into life. And when a woman is embodied in herself, when she feels, the pleasure that in her body, she's an empowering woman. And she becomes like unfuckwithable. And that's what is attractive. That's what is magnetic about her.
And I think, like you say, you mentioned some key words about shame and guilt related to, what we want to do in terms of being more open and experimental in our relationships. And quite often, I think our partners are delighted when we unleash that side of ourselves, aren't they? It's not a conversation a man to shy away from hearing.
No, I think something really incredibly powerful when a woman embraces that wild side is that she takes charge in the bedroom. And believe it or not, men love it. They love it when we actually owns our pleasure, when we own our desires. And yet this is where a lot of the time the conflicts happen. We've seen women going through honeymoon period and they have the best sex of their lives. They have so much passion, so much aliveness. And then the kind of like the routines and the relationship kind of dull that. And so when women reignite that spark within themselves, like it's so exciting. It brings back the passion. And this is where I believe this is the key for like long-term sustainable passionate relationship. Not just like the boring, we're together now, let's just get on with it.
Okay, so you're not necessarily, talking about in terms of women having the power in the bedroom of her sort of more or less permanently becoming some sort of dominatrix.
No, well, she can choose to if she wants to. And this is the thing about sexual liberation, is when we take away the umbrella or the wet blanket of shame, then the person, not only the women but also the men, they can be free to explore what is pleasure for them. Because then sex isn't just about penetration. sex is so much more. There's a depth of intimacy that we can explore. And when a woman owns her inner slut, like, she doesn't have to pretend. This is one of the big problems that I work with my clients, is that women faking it in the bedroom. Women just want to have sex to get it over and done with, or they withhold sex because they don't feel met or they don't feel seen. And this impacts greatly in relationship. Sex is not everything, but it is an important part of any relationship. And when I say sex, I don't just mean, penetration. Is so much more than that. And so when we explore that realm, like, there's a whole different world that we can explore. And when a woman is, when she feels free in herself, that also gives permission for her man to explore what is pleasurable for him. And so then we can play more in that realm of intimacy, of sexuality. We can be curious about what is actually turning us on, what are our desires or fantasies, and not playing in this like really rigid, boring, mundane, sexual activities that we can usually fall into because it's just routine.
Absolutely. And I suppose it's a shame that we do fall into those patterns, because like you say, quite often then the passion and the intimacy dies down in our relationships, and there's not much keeping it together, not even basic sex. So it's in our own interest, isn't it, to explore and to be open, to be more imaginative, and have those. It might be initially, I suppose, a difficult conversation to have if you're listening to this and you're thinking, yeah, our sex life has got into a bit of a rut. I don't know how to reignite the spark. What would you say to those women, Jane?
So there's actually two sides to this. So in any relationship, obviously, I work a lot with women. I would recommend the women to start their own inner journey, their own sexual awakening, because when a woman, like I say, women when a woman liberate herself from her own chains of shame, and that create even more like space and permission in the relationship. And so first, like, really asking yourself, who do you want to be as a woman? If you have full permission to express, to really experience life to the fullest, who do you want to be? And what do you deeply desire to experience? Because that then open a whole new kind of pathways to explore, and you can go down the path of tantra. You can do a lot of healing work when it comes to sexuality. If you've had sexual trauma in the past, you can see therapists. And on the other side is the part where we also need to communicate with our partner about where things are at with us. And often what I find is honesty opens deeper intimacy. It may be a very challenging conversation, yet I believe that when you're really honest with each other and there's space for that, then you both can explore this journey together. And it's a wonderful journey for couple to go down the path of really like working on themselves separately, and also together build deeper intimacy. You can go to workshops, you can have, relationship coach to really work with you as a couple. You can try different range of, play in the bedroom. Like, there's such a whole world for you to explore. But what it really takes is firstly courage with yourself, and courage with your partner. And second of all, I say, honesty. Because if you keep settling, if you keep telling yourself, oh, it's not so great, but it's okay, and I can just, live like this forever, then you are doing yourself, such a like, not a bad disservice. Yes. Thank you. A disservice, because you're not serving yourself, you're not serving your relationship. And I have seen, a lot of women come to me because some part in themselves is not happy, And, the old saying, happy wife, happy life, And so when a woman is not happy, the man can feel it. And ultimately, the relationship will go downhill from there.
Yeah, it's such a sad situation where, it's so possible, isn't it, to turn things around, and yet just for the sake of being courageous enough to have a conversation could literally flip that all on its head. So I suppose if you're sort of a bit more introvert and don't feel comfortable having that conversation, even some sort of to open the door to having that conversation, even some sort of I suppose flirty text or note to your man could open that door, couldn't it?
You can do all sorts of things, and like I said, it doesn't have to be a serious conversation. It can be a really playful, flirty conversation. Hey, I would love for us to explore this. What do you think? And we're kind of testing the water. You can buy some really nice, sexy lingerie that you may have been like thinking, oh, like I can't wear this. I don't have the body for this, or I'm too old for this, or I shouldn't be wearing this because I'm a mum. Like, really give yourself a permission to just go, what if, I'm just going to buy that and try it on for once and play. Play is such an important part of intimacy. And I think, the routine, the day-to-day, it takes away that spark, and play ignites that inner child. It ignites the part of us that, want to explore, want to adventure. And I think it's a wonderful thing for a couple to bring more play into the bedroom.
So what are some of the suggestions that you could offer, for anybody that's listening to this and thinking, oh yeah, I'd love to bring some more adventure, some more playfulness, bring back the flirtiness back into our relationships. Do you have any suggestions as to what those ideas would be?
So there's a range. So it depends on what level that you want to play. So I guess like some really light practices could be that, you can start like, some slow touch practices, like sitting opposite each other, eye gazing, and then just touch each other. That is not about an outcome. So what I mean by that is we are conditioned that every time we touch each other or our partner, it always has to lead into sex. And so explore touch outside of the bedroom. What would that feel like if you just brush your hands across his hand while you walk, in the kitchen? What would it feel like if he touches your legs, while you're cooking? Like, really explore that play outside the bedroom. And then you can bring also like different sensations. So you can bring like food into the bedroom. You can bring chocolate and ice into the bedroom. You can bring extra toys into the bedroom, massages, oils, all these things can enhance different sensations. And then if you want to, then you can also, explore like workshops, like tantra workshop, where you really work on a different level, not just from a physical level, but from that emotional depth with each other, and see where this will open for you. And then on the other kind of like the extreme, where you can explore more your kink side. And so there are different toys, like ropes, whips, and things that you can actually bring into your relationship, depending on where you are on that spectrum. And none of it is like good or bad or right or wrong. It just, again, play and exploration.
Yeah, absolutely. And sometimes, it's great to, have a little bit of role play and do some dressing up and things like that.
Definitely. Yes. And it's actually really fun. I see that it's almost like an escapism for women when they can actually put on a costume and take themselves out of the normal day-to-day role and give themselves permission to be like like an actress, essentially, like be a different character and explore what's that like. And so these, when I talk about the inner slut or the, the wild side, it's like explore that. What would be like for you to just give yourself permission to be like a really sexy, seductive, confident, unapologetic kind of sexual woman, and see, because then the confidence will change, because you're out of your head and you're in a different, almost like an archetype, an energy, an avatar, and there's more room to play with as well.
I love that. Yeah. And it's just like, I suppose, going back to our childhood and escaping into our imaginations, isn't it? When we used to do dressing up as kids and think nothing of it. But yeah, it becomes a bit of an issue when we're adults, that we feel a bit reluctant sometimes to explore that inner child again.
Definitely. And creativity is great when it comes to the bedroom. You know, potentially you can create different games to play with your partner. There's a whole world of imagination, and it really comes to you to have that curiosity and creativity. Yeah, and to create the adventure that you really desire.
And I think sometimes there are some adult games that will give you cards to read that you might want to explore if you're stuck for ideas. I know there's plenty of online adult games that you can buy that'll give you some great ideas, which you may or may not want to explore. You know, it doesn't mean just because you have a suggestion that you have to explore that suggestion. If you don't feel comfortable with it, or if it doesn't really light up your turn on button.
And this is a thing about sexuality, you know, the range of sexual pleasures are like wide. And what I mean by that is that something may turn one person on is a completely turn off for someone else. And so it's really becomes it's really important for you as a woman, as a couple, to really explore, hey, what turns me on? Because different kind of touch can really enhance or really shut you down depending on, you know, your own preferences. And so really explore that range and see, like, you know, what really excites you, what turns you on, and share that with your partner. And this is where I think it's important why women need to take more responsibility when it comes to their pleasures, because men can't read mind. Even though we think, or we hope that they can, they can't. And so we need to communicate. And our communication doesn't always have to be words. We can communicate through sound, through our body, through our moans, through different ways. And so this is why, if you don't know what turns you on, if you don't know what turns you off, it's extremely hard when it comes to intimacy, because your partner won't know, and he'll try his best, you know, and so the clearer we are when it comes to our own self-pleasure, the easier it is for intimacy to flourish.
What about if you did have a clash, let's say your partner said to you, you know, what really turns me on is you talking and sharing your naughty thoughts with me during sex, and that you don't want to, or don't feel comfortable doing that. What would you suggest in that sort of instance?
And so this is, I guess, the common thing, because sometimes we have things that we have common interest in and sometimes we don't, which is very normal. And what I say to that is, we'll have sessions where it's called receiving and giving. And what that means is the session where you as a woman get to receive, that's all about you. You get to tell your partner, hey, I desire to be touched this way, sensually, softly, without any agenda, without any outcome. I just want to be touched and for my body to be worshipped. And you get to experience that. You get to enjoy that. Yeah, and your partner, his role there is mainly to serve you, to devote to you, to give. And you know, a lot of people think that giving is a chore, but when you really give, and this is why it's important for you to communicate, because when your partner gives to you and you moan and you tell him, yes, I love it. Oh my God, more please. Yes, this way. No, actually, that doesn't feel good. Like the feedback is important for the giver. And so the more feedback he gets, it's like, when we usually compare to like kids, it's like when you're doing something great and you've got praise, you want to do more, right? And so this is why it's really important for you to communicate, and then we can switch. Then your partner will say, hey, I would love for us to explore like naughty talk, even though I know that may not be, the thing that lights you up. And you can give it a go. And this is the important bit, is we are willing to give it a go. And if it doesn't work, we can try something else. But this is why I talk about play. Be playful, be curious. It doesn't have to be, a certain way for it to be pleasurable or exciting or to be right.
Yeah, and I think it's also important to share, if you do something for your man or your man does something for you, that it doesn't necessarily have to be on repeat all the time from that point onwards. You can explore different things and then bring that particular thing back in at other points during your relationship. Otherwise, again, it can become routine, can't it? And resentment can creep in if he's expecting, a certain thing or action from you that you've given in the past every time you have sex.
And this is why also exploring boundary consent is very important as well, because what you don't want to do is to do something that completely crosses your boundaries, which then leads to trauma and shut down in your own body, in your system. And so communicating, letting your partner know, hey, these are the boundaries, and we can play in this area, but these are my no's. And so really own it, own your no's, and then you can then own your yes, and let him know what turns you on. And then one also, that when the men know these are the boundaries, it's also easier for him to play in that without, I guess, like being afraid that he's going to hurt you or he's going to upset you.
Absolutely. I've loved this conversation, Jane. It's been really interesting, and thank you so much for sharing your words of wisdom around it. So for the audience out there that would like to connect with you and probably find out more about what you do, what's your best contact information?
So you can go on my website, which is sacredfemininedevotion.com, or you can find me on different social media platforms. I'm more active on Instagram. Lyn will put up the link, I'm sure, in the bio. So yeah, I'm looking forward to connecting with you. If you, I do have a free gift on my website. So if you're interested in this topic, make sure you sign up for that. So I just want to say thank you so much for having me here. It's been such a pleasurable conversation, and I just love that, this is just such a free platform where nothing is taboo and we can talk about real important conversation.
Absolutely. So any final words around why it's important for women to embrace the inner wild side, or naughty girl, or inner slut, whatever phrase you want to use? Before we wrap up the episode?
So what I want to leave with you is just a reminder that who you are as a woman is sacred. Your body is sacred. Your sexuality is sacred. Your pleasures are sacred. And so remember that, anytime when shames come up, remind yourself, I am sacred. And give yourself permission to live life fully, to experience the kind of like soul-led, heart wide open, earth-shattering intimacy that you deeply desire. And don't ever settle for less than what you truly deserve.
Absolutely. 100% agree with that. It's all about, I think humans generally, we're hedonistic creatures. We always are seeking pleasure and joy out of life, and why not, with our intimate partner? That's the most sacred, special gift that we can give to each other, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. Enjoy, be wild. Your men will love it.
Well, thank you so much, Jane. It's been a pleasure. So for me, it just leaves me to say that true love starts with opening our hearts. And until next time, goodbye for now.
Thanks for listening to the Hearts Entwined podcast. You can follow Lyn via the Facebook group Two Hearts Entwined, or search Lyn Smith, inspirational speaker, at LinkedIn, or email lyn@hearts-entwined.com. That's LYN@hearts-entwined.com. Remember, true love starts with opening our hearts.